Calvary Chapel presents Pastor's Perspective, a one-hour program that gives a biblical and pastoral viewpoint on the theological, social, and practical issues of the day. We'll be taking your calls in just a moment. But first, here's today's host.
Welcome to Pastor's Perspective. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be a part of today's show, you can call 888-564-6173. My name is Josh Turansky. I'm your host for today's show, and we've got a special show in store for you. We've got a bunch of guests in studio today. We talked about this a bit yesterday, Pastor Brian, that you're bringing in your whole gang here.
My whole gang.
Your whole gang of guys.
Yes, literally.
So, go ahead, introduce them.
Yeah, well, we've got the guys here with us in studio, the guys that are featured in the film that we're going to be showing tonight. And just want to give a shout out to our local listeners to remind you, 7:30 tonight right here at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, we're going to be premiering for this area. We're going to be premiering the film The Neighborhood. And The Neighborhood is the story of four young men who grew up in the gang culture and eventually came to faith in Christ, and who each of them are now pastoring churches. So we're looking forward to that tonight. But these guys are in the studio with us, as well as Riley Taylor. Riley is the producer of the film, and Riley flew down from Seattle this morning. So, Riley, it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
And Jose Hernandez is here on my left, and Jose pastors Hope Central in Watts, California, and he's part of the film. Jose?
I'm really glad to be here, too.
Yeah,
Thank
good.
you.
And then to my right, my good friend David Zamora. David comes from Fontana, and he's pastoring Living Way. Is it Living Way?
Yes.
You know, I always Living Word, Living Water. I always get it mixed up. Living Way. Pastors Living Way Christian Fellowship in Fontana. And David is great. Have you ever been on before with us?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I thought that you had. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Tommy Cota, our own Tommy Cota, who is pastoring now in the city of Santa Ana.
Hope Alive.
Hope Alive
Church.
Santa Ana, yeah. And Tommy was on staff with us for a number of years here, and he's just such a dear friend and great brother. And so we're just going to talk today. We're going to talk a little bit about the background of the, lives of each of these guys. We're going to talk about the film, and so we're, everything's getting ready for the big thing tonight. But what I'm wondering, and we'll need to find this out, Josh, I'm wondering are we going to have is the film going to go out online tonight? Can people watch it?
I'll find out. I'll find out right now.
Let's find that out, because, but tonight also, for the first time, because the film's been shown a few times already, more than a few times. And we've had like at least 10,000 people have seen the film. We've got several hundred people respond to invitations, but what we haven't had is the DVD, and what we have tonight is the DVD. So
awesome!
We're looking forward to that. So
I think they said it was like more than 20 showings already.
Yeah,
more than 20.
Was it more than
with
20?
about that many to go.
Right on.
Yeah,
more coming in every day.
Yeah. So Riley, for those listening who are outside of the area, what's the means of booking, where, maybe even one of the guys would come with the film and give a testimony, preach the gospel. How do people do that?
Yeah, right now we're showing the movie. You can book it for an event. It's free. And so you can just go to our website, the film's website, which is theneighborhoodfilm.com. And there's a chance to fill out a form to book it, and we'll provide you with all the files that you need, anything you could want to help promote your event. And our heart is to get the film in front of as many people as possible, so people can hear the gospel, hear this amazing story of these guys' lives. And so that's where we're at right now. And then, like you said, DVDs are available tonight. We're going to be making even more after that. Mm-hmm. And then it's on its way to internet retailers such as iTunes and Amazon as well. So stay tuned for that.
Great. Yeah, and I just keep hearing just amazing stories, of the fruit that's coming out of this. So I think we're kind of just scratching the surface, and I think the Lord's going to do some really amazing things. So, but let me just give kind of a little background. So, with the film, I know you guys, we've been friends, we've been doing ministry together. And of course, I know your stories. I know where you came from. And it was just, for a few years, it was just in my heart, like, man, we gotta put this, we gotta put this to film. We gotta tell this story. And so finally, the opportunity came, and I've known Riley since he was a little kid, and he's produced some films, and he's worked in that arena, and he's just a great young guy. So I thought, I want to give Riley a call and see if he'd be interested in, collaboration here and doing this film together. And so, of course, he was. He responded. He came down, and you guys know we all met, and we talked about the possibility, of what we might do with it. And but essentially, the real objective is to just get the gospel out and to testify once again to just the power of God. Because as I said in the film itself, you guys to me you're living proof of God's existence. People always say like, well, prove to me God exists. Well, I just point to any one of you guys and say, there's proof right there that God exists, because there's really no explanation apart from God for where you are today, in comparison to where you were, all of you guys, 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. So, yeah.
It is true, because even, when I think of like what my life was before, and I think all of us can probably say that too, is this life now with Christ, as, serving the Lord in this way, I never would have dreamt of this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
To know that, this is the Lord, totally.
When you were in prison, especially those first, several years, prior to kind of maybe the tail end where maybe you were starting to get convicted and you were starting to feel, but for those first number of years you were in prison, you weren't sitting there thinking, man, I need to become a Christian.
Oh, not at all.
I need to change
Not
my
at all.
life.
If anything, it was just, being in prison, my thoughts were, how can I be more clever at being a criminal? That was it. Who can I hook up with here? Hook up in the jails with to help maybe get more drugs or sell more drugs or something like that.
So do you think our penitentiary system is kind of failing in reforming people?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it says it says on the back of the California Department of Corrections, they added now rehabilitation, CDCR.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are they doing to rehabilitate? I don't know, but.
Right. So this is Tommy who's talking. So, David, well, I just wanted to kind of go around and just get a little, get you guys to kind of chime in personally, and then I want to talk to Riley a bit. But we met, how many years ago now? Has it been like almost 10 or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah. And, but when I first met you, I really didn't know anything about your background. You're just a young guy who was coming out to occasionally to the Bible study that I was teaching, and you were having some opportunities to minister, and then you ended up getting an opportunity to actually take over a church as a pastor.
Yes.
And so that's been a really exciting thing to watch, as I've just watched you grow and just see, what God's doing with you out there in the Inland Empire. Just, give us a quick little kind of a synopsis of where you've been since you came to the Lord.
Well, it's been, obviously, the journey has been amazing. And just on a note today, it's a blessing to be able to be here and then talk a little bit about this, because remember, several years ago, you came and you spoke at our church, and then we prayed for this building across the street.
Yeah.
And then we already acquired a portion of it.
Yeah.
And just this morning, I was sitting with the owner, And we were talking, and he says, what can we do to get the rest of the building into your hands? And so we just worked out an agreement today.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, so we got the full rest of the building, and then I'm sitting there thinking, like, I remember when Pastor Brian was here and we were just praying for the building. So that's pretty amazing. And that building was the former parole office where I was. And me and the owner are sitting in my office, and I told him, this is the very office where me and my parole officer used to meet.
That is
I made that my church office.
Oh, that is so crazy.
Yeah, but it's been good.
Yeah.
It's been a good work that the Lord's been doing.
So you guys are, you have the church there. You've started a Bible college. You actually also have a campus there, right, where you're doing just general education for people to help them get maybe an AA so they can kind of move on in life with Christian Community. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Christian Community College.
Christian Community College,
Yes.
Yeah. So God's using you to help people come out of the lifestyle that you used to live in and kind of, go through a transition and transformation into normal, healthy, productive living.
Into society. One of the things we've been able to do is we opened up an 8-bed facility where we house guys for a year. And it's not too far from the church, so it's like a discipleship house. And then from there, if they don't have a high school diploma or something, we wrote the 5 battery tests that would suffice for high school completion. And then we have an accredited 2-year general ed program there through Community Christian College, so they're able to get their Title IV funding, their financial aid, all of that. And then we're an affiliate campus of the Calvary Chapel Bible College in Marietta.
Yeah.
So depending on where they want to, go education-wise, it's all Christian education. So it's a blessing just to be able to serve the community in that dynamic. I would have never thought I'd be doing that.
Yeah. No, I'm sure a lot of people never thought you would be doing that. What happened? I remember you told me, but it's kind of connected to this. Was it the judge that sentenced you, or there was somebody who found out about some of the stuff you were doing, and they were like, "No, it can't be the David Zamora that I remember."
Yes.
What was that story?
Yes, I was going for a certificate of rehabilitation, and the district attorney, they had to have a meeting with me. They went through a process of kind of doing background, making sure that I hadn't been in any more trouble since I've been out of prison. And so anyways, I'm sitting there in this room with this lady at one of the courthouses that I had been tried at in the past, and she's looking at me, and she has it's called a C file. She has my criminal record. She has everything there. And then she has all these letters from the Fontana Police Department, the parole department, all these people giving high recommendations for me. And she says, I just want to understand, how did this individual become this individual? And all she was pointing at was the 2 folders sitting on her desk. And so I says, you have to let me share the gospel. And she slid this recorder right in front of me, and she goes, you're on record. And so I just preached Jesus to her and told her that it was God who changed me. And so then I got the certificate of rehabilitation. Well, the judge that needed to sign off on that was a judge that had literally told my mom, I have no problem giving this guy a life sentence, because the 3 strikes law at that time was something that was, really big. So anyways, I thought to myself, man, I'm going to show this guy, upset, thinking I was going to do something to him. But anyways, I did.
Yeah.
Because as he's reading this, he's all, I know this is Zamora, the last name. And he starts looking, and he's like, I remember this guy being in my courtroom. And she said, well, he's a pastor now. And so anyways, he signed the certificate of rehab, and he motioned for me to go ahead and now move forward with a full governor's pardon on my 2 felony convictions. So that's something we're praying about right now, and we'll possibly be looking into doing here pretty soon.
Wow. Amazing. See what I mean? It's
incredible.
These guys are living proof that there's a God.
Let me take a minute and just introduce the show again to people that are just tuning in. You're listening to Pastor's Perspective. And this first half hour, at least, we're not taking calls because we want to introduce you to the key members of the Neighborhood Film. This is a film that Pastor Brian produced along with and was directed by Riley Taylor, who's also in studio with us. You've just been hearing from David Zamora. And Pastor Brian's been gracious enough to have these guys in, especially because we're actually premiering the film tonight at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. kind of the home church that sponsored this film. It's very exciting. It's going to be out on DVD for the first time this evening. We've posted a picture of the guys to our Facebook page and a link to the Neighborhood Film page on our Facebook page as well. So, Pastor Brian, we were talking with David. Keep going. Keep sharing these guys.
Yeah. Well, on my left here, Jose is here, and Jose pastors in the city of Watts, and Watts has a nationwide reputation, really. Of course, more from the 60s, with the riots and all of that happened there. Anybody that was alive at that time, remembers Watts for that. But things haven't really gotten much better in Watts in the past, 40 plus years, have they? Because it's still a rough place. It's still, Jose, I was with you last Saturday night, and you guys did an outreach there right in the center of town. Yeah. And, every time I go up there and see you guys, I just think, man, wow, this place needs Jesus,
Amen.
And, of course, you're there because you believe the same thing, but you grew up there, and the last place you ever wanted to return to was where you're at right now, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that I'm the classic person that tries to, communicate to God your plans.
Yeah.
And then, he pretty much laughs at you and then just does what he needs to do anyway. And I think that in the beginning, when I was a baby Christian, I always, for me, I aspired to be a pastor when I felt the calling at Calvary Chapel Downey, my home church. And I remember that as I came to the School of Ministry, and here in Costa Mesa, I believe that the first semester, God really began to put that burden on my heart for the people of Watts. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, my thing was like, yeah, okay, but I'm not going to do that,
Mm-hmm.
And so
you were going to pray for him.
Well, yeah, I was I was more than willing to be helpful if anybody else wanted to go, and I'd show them kind of the ropes kind of thing, but I wasn't gonna. For me, it wasn't that. Yeah. And I believe it was when I was at the trip, our class trip to Haiti, that God really spoke to me, and we were preaching behind a collapsed home in Haiti, right there in Port-au-Prince, and I remember that they had nothing. And they were just worshiping God. Mm-hmm. And the Lord really spoke to my heart about, do you want a church building or do you want a church? Mm-hmm. And I was like, Lord, I'll just go wherever you want me to go. Mm-hmm. And I remember that we started with a tarp. The pastor from Calvary Chapel, Santa Fe Springs, let us borrow this old tarp that they had, and we put it on the basketball field, and we were out there for the first few months of our existence, and wow. About a couple months right before it started raining in November 2011, I remember that we got the permit to be able to utilize the gym and the recreational facilities there on 109th Street.
Wow.
So literally 1 week before it started raining, we went inside.
Yeah. So you started under a tarp on a basketball court.
In Watts.
In a recreation area in Watts, man. That's what I call some serious church planting right there. That's like full mission. That's full mission work right there in the inner city. So just in a kind of a nutshell, Jose, what's happened? So 2011, November, and here we are. We're coming up on November in a few weeks, 2015. So 5 years?
We just celebrated 4 years as Hope Central. And we actually are doing some of the events for the year that this is going to be actually our 5th year. Mm-hmm. And so it's just pretty awesome to see how, if you keep reading past Acts 2:42, it says then. Yeah. And I love that because it says how after these things, then you receive favor from all men. Yeah. And it's crazy because, with the city and Parks and Rec, LAPD, all these different entities have given us pretty much a really, really good opportunity. And I was just sharing with Tommy on the way up here that actually Parks and Rec has called me from another director, and they're asking us if we can plan another church. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not saying it exactly like that, but they're saying, hey, we have another rec center right off of King and Avalon, right up the street from USC. Mm-hmm. And they said, it's yours if you want to come in and start our work over here.
Wow.
And
amazing.
So we're going to look at that right now. But again, the Lord has just opened up so many doors.
Yeah.
We're doing outreach in all the housing projects there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that though it's I mean, it's bad in some places of Santa Ana, it's bad in some places of Ontario, Fontana. I mean, it's bad in some places in Seattle. But, you know, we have just, there's just this unique thing about Watts that we have 4 huge housing projects.
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest one is the Nickerson Gardens, the biggest one west of the Mississippi. And we have social programs. If you need a free phone, I mean, we got free phones. You know, we got, you know, vouchers for this and vouchers for that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that this is a place, a true mission field in the urban setting that needs Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We just go out into the streets. We go on to the projects. We set up a stage. We give them the gospel. You know, we feed them, of course, you know, to try to bring some people in. We do a lot of things with the kids because, and just in the last few weeks, I mean, it's just been murder back and forth.
Yeah.
And shootings back and forth. And, you know, for us, it's just to see these kids and these families that for a moment they can just be families, they could just be kids.
Yeah.
And to get that security of the gospel, because that I think is where it's really at. Because everything else, I mean, you feed them, then by that afternoon you're going to be hungry again.
You know, every time I go to Watts, especially, I think of the passage from Zechariah where God describes what the future holds, and he describes it as, you know, every man will sit under his vine, and it's kind of like the picture of sitting on the porch in the evening, and the children will play in the streets. And you think, man, that's God's description of a beautiful situation. And every time I'm in Watts, I just think, wow, when you look at the streets of this city, you realize how, you know, just the contrast between what man and sin has produced and what God plans and ultimately has in store for people, you know. So Riley Taylor is Riley's the producer of the film, and Riley, you're a young guy from Seattle, and like Jose said, you know, there are some rough areas in Seattle, but you probably didn't hang out in those areas too much as a kid.
No.
So here you come into this whole new world with these guys, right? And you meet these guys, you become friends, you kind of just immerse yourself in their world because that's where you're filming the film. How has all of this impacted you, or kind of just share, you know, kind of like your impressions as you've been going through this season with these guys?
Yeah, the being so intimately involved as a filmmaker, the goal of a good filmmaker should be to tell a good story. It's not unlike any storytelling medium. And so, you know, these guys sent me all their testimonies, recorded. I listened to them over and over. In fact, I took notes on them. And then when I interviewed them, I listened to each one a few times through, and then got them transcribed, and I read them. So I became really intimately involved with the details, so that when we could actually go to start editing, it was you know, much more accessible in my mind to put pieces where they needed to go. And as I was doing that, there were times, especially I want to say in David Trujillo, in his story, there were a couple times, David Zamora, actually, I mean, all the guys, there was different times where I'm at my desk and I'm editing, and I started crying because I was touched by what God has done in their lives. And it reminds me of when Paul says in Colossians that he's heard of their faith and that it encourages him. That his just hearing about it brings encouragement and comfort to him. And so when I was hearing their stories, I was myself built up. I was myself being encouraged. And it's a bit like the term that is given to Israel when the Bible says that they are an object of God's compassion. Like you said, evidence of God, and not just of his existence, but of his goodness, of his of his love, and God is good and he is love. So it definitely testifies to who God is. And so I found myself just so built up. Just like you said, the contrast between man's plan and God's plan is so evident there. The kind of just the dominion of darkness and being rescued from that and being transferred to the kingdom of God's beloved Son, Christ Jesus. That verse really rings true to me when I think about it. So I was just so uplifted and encouraged, and the hope is that anyone who watches the film can have that same access to God's goodness through their testimony.
One of the amazing things, even thus far, with the film, even though it's just, really kind of getting rolling, is to see the people that are responding, because, of course, there are the ones that we would expect, like the guys that, came from similar backgrounds to you guys. I remember, David, when we were out in Fontana and did the film out there, and there were some, I think, active gang members that were there that night. And, okay, so that's one. But then there's just like these other people that, you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, this movie's going to really impact these guys. But I think the reason for that is because we're just telling a human story. And Riley, you really focused in on that, didn't you? The humanity of each one of these guys, the personal struggles and things in their childhood that kind of led them into this lifestyle. And I think that's one of the things that's resonating with other people, who maybe never were in a gang, but they know what it's like to grow up in a broken home. They know what it's like to have an abusive parent. They know what it's like to, whatever, these kinds of things.
It's really easy to look at other people and make distinctions between yourself and them. It's really easy to do that, to say, wow, they were extreme this way, or they're a violent person, or maybe they're worse than me, or maybe they're better than me. It's easy to do that. But when we see ourselves in light of who God is, it's a great equalizer. And the fact is that the gang life for these guys, as I understand it, the gang life might have been extreme, but it was the answer to a very human need that we all feel. Yep. And so it might be an amazing story, but it is not unique. God is doing this in everyone's life. When we open ourselves up to the Lord, this is exactly what he does, whether you're from Seattle suburbs or urban LA area.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I'm sorry, if I could say something really quick. David says a really key thing that I've seen with so many people coming to see this movie. We left a path of destruction at times in our life. And I think a lot of people resonate or identify with the fact that they have a brother, they have a cousin, they have a niece or a nephew and these people are part of that destruction that's been left, because that someone gets the call and so-and-so is in prison again, or so-and-so got busted, or this person went through this, that, and the other. There's a lot of people who are coming to these showings and saying, I hope that this person sees it. I'm praying for this person, and those kind of things. So there's a lot of that also, that there are a lot of those people that have been part of the hurt because of people like that we were at one point in our lives. And it's ministering to them because they see that, well, if God can do something with you guys, then we have hope for this person in our lives.
That is a huge component. I think that really, it's like Paul himself. I mean, he says that Jesus had mercy on him, the chief of sinners, to show other people how, I'm paraphrasing, but to show other people how extensive God's mercy is. If Paul reasoned, if God could forgive me and turn me around and put me in the ministry, then God could do that for anybody. And I think that is the same situation with you guys. On this program daily, we obviously get Bible questions, and people just want to know sort of sometimes, what does this verse mean or whatever. But we get a ton of calls, as you guys know, of people who, my kids have gone off the rails, my kids in drugs, my kids my daughter's pregnant or my child's gone into the homosexual life, all of that kind of stuff. And you guys are just reminders that, don't give up. Don't stop praying. Just keep trusting the Lord, because that's what happened.
All right, we're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Pastor's Perspective. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a special half hour ahead. We've already been talking with the guys from the Neighborhood Film. You've heard a bit of their testimonies, and Pastor Brian is the one who produced this film. He called up Riley Taylor, who's also in studio with us, and said, hey, help me tell these guys' story, the amazing story of redemption, of God turning lives around. Now, all three of the guys here and four guys in the movie are now pastoring churches around the country, and their former gang members come out of really bad pasts. And so we're going to continue to tell their story. So stick around. We've got a few calls, people that have called in with questions. I'm going to read those questions in a minute and let these guys answer them. There's also a question that came in on Facebook from Carol, who happens to be a correctional officer in Kern Valley State Prison. And she's saying, please let me know, is it going to be streamed tonight? Because I want to see the film. I want the guys in my prison to be able to see it.
Perfect. It's going to be streamed.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to do it.
All right, Carol. So you'll be able to watch it this evening.
Yeah. So, obviously if you're local, come on out and just be part of it. It's going to be a great night. All the guys are here. We're going to be talking a little bit more. And Tommy's going to share the gospel with us tonight. And he just heard that for the first time.
I'm ready.
But I know he's ready. He's always ready. And but, my concern would be for our listeners. We've got listeners all around the country. And so wherever you are, if you're on the East Coast, if you're in the Midwest, whatever time zone you're in, know that at 7:30 Pacific time, which would be, of course, 10:30 if you're on the East Coast, we're going to show the film. The film's just a little under an hour. So, tune in. cccm.com, and I'm sure there'll just be a live link there, and that's how you can watch the film. So, gosh, what a great thing that the correctional officer, she wants to show it.
Yeah. That's awesome, you know. And one of the things too is that I've been getting some phone calls by juvenile hall, people who work with juveniles inside the juvenile hall, and they want to show the movie, the film inside the juvenile halls. And so it's really neat to see how the Lord is opening up these doors for us to go into places like that.
I showed it at a juvenile detention center around Seattle last Wednesday. It was really great. I mean, it was awesome. We had over 100 kids come out.
Praise the Lord.
We showed it, and we got to preach the gospel there.
So what was the response? Did you get a chance to kind of talk to any of the kids or anything? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's a high-security place. They kind of shuffle them in and out, but there was a chance for the church that I was with, which is nearby in the Seattle area, to follow up weekly. And so they're pursuing that connection. And then I stayed for a little while, and I talked to some guys, some young kids, and it was fantastic.
Wow, that is so great. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about, guys, we've got some calls up there. We'll go to those in a few minutes, but I wanted to talk about kind of, you know, we're at a time in the culture, and I'm not denying that there's kind of a more sort of anti-Christian sentiment than maybe there has been in the past. It's rising, and we see it particularly in the media, and we see it, you know, in some areas of government and so forth, you know. But, you know, I think sometimes we, you know, as Christians, we just kind of operate in fear, and it's kind of like the sky is falling, and, you know, we see some of these things, and we think, oh, no, you know, we can't publicly share the gospel, and, you know, doors are closing for us, and, you know, that kind of thing, and, you know, causing us to kind of draw back and just be, you know, sort of circling the wagons, and, you know, we're huddling, and we're afraid of, you know, what's going on out there. But to me, and especially with you guys, you're just such a great example of how there are so many open doors still. We just have to look with the eyes of faith and believe that, you know, God's still moving, you know, regardless of what. I'm not saying these other things aren't happening to some degree, you know, they are, but doesn't mean that you know, every door's shut, because there's some amazing doors for each one of you guys. There are these amazing doors that, you know, we hear all the time, you know, you can't preach the gospel in a public school, you can't preach the gospel in a public, you know, institution or whatever, but you guys are experiencing something different than that. But before you comment, let's just give a shout out to David Trujillo, because we forgot David, but it's because he's not here. So out of sight, out of mind, but he just came to my mind. Yeah. So we love you, David, if you're out there, and wish you were with us, but we know you had a previous commitment. So
he's out there in New Mexico.
Is that where he went? New Mexico? Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, he said he would call in even if we needed him to, but we'll let him just have a break. So okay. So Tommy, I'm going to start with you. Explode the myth that doors are not open for the gospel.
Oh, well, they are. They're extremely open. You know, when you were sharing right now, I was just thinking, you know, where sin abounds, grace abounds much more. And it truly is the grace of God opening up these doors and showing us favor. And it's not just us. I know it's so many more people that are experiencing this type of favor and grace. You know, one of the things that we get to do as a ministry is that we get to go into the public schools here in the Santa Ana Unified District, and we get to go into as many schools as we possibly can, and we do Bible clubs there, you know, on the high school campuses, junior high school campuses, elementary schools, you know, and one of the neat things is that there's, you know, we do have to do all the fingerprinting and do all that stuff, you know, obviously that any other volunteer has to do. But the beautiful thing about it is that principals from other schools that where we don't have a Bible club at are reaching out to us. Teachers are reaching out to us. Other administrators are reaching out to us saying, hey, can you start a program, do a Bible club here at this school and at that school? And so we're being invited to do these types of things, you know, and it's really neat. And I had the opportunity to talk with a principal here not too long ago at a high school that we do a Bible club at. And I showed him the trailer of the film, and he was like, how do we get this film? Let's do something. Let's plan something. So I'm going to be meeting with him to plan like a full-on, he wants to do an outreach there on his campus, you know, and just totally, completely supportive. And
That is so amazing. And I remember, Tommy, a few times, where you would be invited to go speak, to the administration of, the school district or whatever. And, there you are, coming out of your background and you're talking to all these people with, at least master's degree, many of them with PhDs, and they're just like, hey, tell us what to do, tell us how to help these kids. I just think, man, this is just the way God does stuff.
Yeah, I think it was one of the times was when I came up to you and I said, hey, listen, I got invited to go and they want me to talk to a bunch of, there's a few judges and some parole agents and probation officers, and they want me to speak to them on how, they can change some of the behavior of the youth and everything. And I was like, man, I was nervous. And so I was like, hey, Pastor Brian, can you go with me? Maybe, they'll hear it better coming from you. And, I remember that's all you did. You laughed. It was like, ha ha, and you said, think about it. At one point in your life, you had to sit and listen to these judges speak to you. Now they're wanting to hear from you, and that was a good encouragement for me. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And David, you've got similar kinds of things that are happening. Maybe not exactly, going into the schools like Tommy is. But you've got a ton of open doors as well, right? And people who would normally be thought of as, they're closed to the gospel, they're not interested, don't bring that around here. You've had people like that reaching out to you and saying, hey, help us with these young people.
Yeah, we've been into a couple of schools in our area and in the community. There in Fontana, there is a close connection with the police department there in the city, which is kind of cool. And the mayor, these are people that really know me. They know my wife. They know my kids. And anytime we do an event at the church, they come out. They support it. It's just been really, really good to be able to just share the gospel. And the thing about in the schools is I was a part of an organization prior to being a pastor with teaching gang intervention and so on and so forth because of my background. We went into a lot of high schools and junior high schools, and though I went in with this organization, the second the kids would ask me the question as to how did you change, then that was an open door for me to share the gospel, and I was able to, and got to pray with a lot of kids. So the harvest is truly plentiful, and we just need to get out there and get busy.
Yeah. And Jose, you've already made it, a couple of references to LAPD and different people, but fire department up there, I've been up there and seen, these guys right there interacting with you guys, opening doors for you, giving you invitations.
Yeah, I think after what David just said about, the labor's plenty, but, the workers are few.
Yeah.
And I think right now, to dismiss this myth, I think for me, it's more of I need more help because so many doors are opening up. It's like, which way do I go? And so, it's just amazing to just see that God, when He's in it, He will supply all those different things. Mm. And so for us, it's just a matter of, gearing up, building that bench strength and being able to start doing some of these things like, going into the schools. We're on our 4th year now, and we did with Reality LA.
Yep.
Met with them a few years back, and so LAPD came to me and said, hey, we have these girls, and, they're coming out of the projects, and they're going into junior high. So we started what's called the police officer and the princess. Mm. And basically, it's a father-daughter dance. Never been done where we are. Mm. We started doing that. It's been 3 years. But now, the principal that just came in, she's a believer, and she's basically saying, okay, I get that whole thing about a dress, the makeup, all this thing for these kids, and they feel like princesses for a day, but is there something else that we can do? And so now we're going to do some kind of we're just in the planning stages right now, but we're going to do some sort of a after-school program for these little girls where these ladies could minister to them, the gospel and purity and all these things that these kids who are, walking down Wilmington to the projects, and we saw it last week. I mean, it's just like corner after corner after corner of stuff. How do you instill those Christian-like values so that they can have something more than just a dress?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great and amazing opportunity. Yeah, we got to just, it's the same old story as it is everywhere. The harvest is great, the laborers are few. We just need more. We need more workers, really, don't we?
Yeah.
Josh.
If you're just tuning in, we just want to let you know you are listening to Pastor's Perspective, and you've just been listening to Pastor Brian Brodersen from Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and he's been orchestrating and interviewing the guys from the Neighborhood Film. This is a film about 4 guys that were in the projects, involved in gangs, and some of them were in jail and prison, and God saved them, and they're now pastoring churches here in Southern California. And it's a great film. We're going to be showing it actually here at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa this evening at 7:30. And we also just announced that it'll be live streamed as well at cccm.com. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. We're not going to actually go to the callers, but on behalf of those callers, we'll ask the question. Let's start with this one from Victor, who happens to be calling from Fontana, California. I think we'll go with this one first because it's an easy one to answer. He says, can you guys recommend any good homes for people who are coming out of this lifestyle? David, you are in Fontana. Can you recommend a home?
Well, the way our home, we have a home, the way it works for us is we are what you would call a second phased home. And typically what that means is that these men already have a relationship with the Lord. It's a discipleship program. It's a year commitment. It's free of charge. And it's on a first come, first served basis. And I don't think there's any home that specifically caters to that. I think that the homes, at least for ours, it's a discipleship program. And so they go through a whole year of discipleship. And so just go to livingwayfontana.org. The information is on there, and that's our website, and it'll kind of give the information for the home there. And I think every home is different. We've just kind of wanted to have a discipleship program. We've graduated a couple of guys already. It's done an amazing thing. My older brother just got saved about a year ago, and he's in the program right now. Wow. And so he's doing good. It's cool. Like today, I get to the church in the morning to go in my office, and there he is cutting the grass at the church, and I'm just looking at this guy like, this is crazy, man. And it's funny because every time he sees me, he says, "What's up, bro?" And he really means bro, like my brother. So it's just kind of cool. But ours is it's a discipleship program, and there's many out there, but ours is more of a second phase.
Okay, good. Awesome. Let me pose a question to Tommy from Lorenda, from San Clemente, California, asking this question: how can I best minister to my brother who is in prison? What would you recommend to Lorenda?
I'd say the best way to minister to him is by being there, continuing to pray for him and encouraging him to seek the Lord while he's in prison, be in the Word. Pretty much all the prison yards do have a church, a chapel that is there, and I've had the privilege to visit a lot of these different chapels on different prison yards here just recently, and a lot of these chapels, these churches that are in there are really thriving. A lot of the men there are lifers as well. So I would just encourage her to, Lorenda, to encourage your brother to get involved with that local chapel that's there, and to get some accountability with the chaplain and with some of the other guys that have been serving the Lord there in the prison for some time. That would be my encouragement to you, and to continue to pray for him. That's prayer is, I think every single one of us here in this room, we're all products of prayer, people praying for us, and now here we are, so yeah, don't get weary in praying.
Yeah, definitely. Great answer. Let me turn to you, Jose. Job from Riverside, California asks, says, I'll be holding a Bible study for non-believers. Can you recommend any strategies for ministering to people involved in gangs?
I would say to build relationships. I think what Tommy just said resonates with me is that when you love people and you build that relationship, no matter where they are in life, when something happens and they know that you are a believer, that you love them, that you've taken that time, they're going to come to you. And the reality is that that's what you want people to come when they need the prayer or when they're really seeking God, and that you could point them in the right direction. And so I would say is that, to just build that relationship, to be there, to pray for them, obviously, but, really to just build a relationship. A lot of these people, when you're talking to gang members and stuff like that, I mean, from my own experience and where I am, they could care less what you have to say unless they know that you care. And we do a lot of things in our neighborhood that shows people that we care. And so when we show up, they show us a lot of respect, and they basically, they're the ones who open up the doors for us. Come on in. And if anybody says anything, you guys come and tell us and we'll deal with it, which is crazy, But that's what it is that you've built a rapport, you've built a bridge, and it's really that bridge of just loving people, Yeah.
So, Jose, last week you had a friend out from St. Louis.
Yes.
Thistle came out and did some outreach with you, and you guys, you were kind of showing them around the neighborhood.
Oh, boy. Taking
a few photos. And but as you were out there, some guys kind of like, hey, what are you doing? We don't want you around here, all of that. And but one of the guys recognized you. They said, hey, this guy's cool. He's the pastor. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of what you're talking about here. This guy's not a believer. This guy's a gang member, but he's telling the other guy that was kind of hot under the collar and maybe wanting to do something. He's telling the guy, hey, chill. This guy's okay.
Yeah, it was one of those things where Thizzle's like, hey, you know what? Do you know where the Jordan Downs is at? And I was like, yeah, it's right up the street. And so that do they have a sign where we could take a picture? And so my daughter was with me, Thizzle's with me. So we just picked him up from the airport, and so he gets out of the passenger seat, and big guy wearing bright blue shoes. I mean, the good thing is that we're on the right side of town wearing blue, but the thing is that we're walking up to the sign. And so we take a couple of pictures and stuff like that. So we start to walk away, and the guys are like, hey, come here. And I'm like, and honestly, I didn't even hear it, but then Thizzle's like, hey, man, they're calling you. And so we turn around. And so I just started walking right towards them, right? And so there was this guy, I mean, dude was swole. I mean, he was, and he's like, man, what are you guys doing? I was like, oh, this is, I'm showing him around. He's from, just here doing some stuff with us. But one of the guys, luckily, it was like, hey, I'm, Hope Central, the pastor, is like, yeah, recognize me. And so right there, he kind of diffused the whole situation. Mm-hmm. But there was that one big guy. I mean, literally, he looked like he was going to take a swing at Thizzle.
Yeah. And
he felt it. I mean, Thizzle felt it like he was like, hey, I'm just, I'm from St. Louis, just checking out the place.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because, just that situation of you doing things in the neighborhood, people recognize you and they just respect the fact that you're there doing something that's good for the community.
Yeah.
And even one of the guys, as they're leaving, I'm like, can I pray for you guys? And one of the guys like, yeah, pray for me that I get some money tonight. But, it could have gone south really quick that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think David and Tommy, respond to that question too, because I think, that's strategy ministering to people involved in gangs. I mean, that's not a light thing.
No, it's not. The first thought that came to my mind was just being real, and I started thinking of how the Apostle Paul was, when he would go and he, there he is now, he's in Corinth, or he's, he just went about his business. He was a tent maker, and he kind of just embedded himself there, and just be real, be genuine, be loving. Kind of like what Jose was saying too. Is just be loving. And that's what people respond to. And I think if in any kind of lifestyle, any kind of situation, if you're being genuine and sincere, people are going to respond to that. And those bridges do get built, and people will receive what you have to say. I really think that's the key right there.
David's going to respond as well. They're moving the mic over to him.
Yeah.
if they can
There we
figure
go.
it out.
There we go.
Little play-by-play. Yes, David.
You know, I don't look at guys in my church and say they're gang members or there's a gang member visiting. I don't do that. I just look at people that need the gospel. And so I think I've communicated that very well. You go to our church and there's people from all walks of life. And I think that what you do is you just, if God's given you an audience to share his word, you just share it in love. And I think with anything, it doesn't have to be a gang member, but people know if you truly love them and you truly believe what you're saying, and that's it. Just, you know, it's one of those things, you know, God just called us to minister to people, and right now, you know, for us, we're going into the areas that some people probably wouldn't consider going into, but yeah, I would just say, just be yourself, share the word, love the people, and I think whether it's a gang member or someone else that's you know, anybody that's not in the word or serving the Lord, just love them. Just love them.
Yeah, sometimes people feel like, well, you know, if I haven't come from that background, so they're not going to listen to me, or what do I have to say, or you know, sometimes people would even go so far as to kind of put on a little bit of an act, like, hey, you know, you know, I'm from the hood too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That's probably, you wouldn't advise that, would you?
No. That's not wise to even try to relate on any level, because they'll know. They'll be like, "Man, this guy was you know, this guy wasn't." You know, it's like, it's funny because, you know, you come across people like that, or they'll look at me. I mean, look at me. You know, my wife tells me, you know, babe, I'm sorry, but there's not much you can do. You look like a homie. Even if you wear a suit, you look like a homie. You know, so they'll come to me sometimes and they'll try to come to me that way. Yeah. Like, hey, Holmes, you know, and I'm looking at them like, okay, what's going on here, you know, kind of thing. And it's not genuine. But the person who led me to the Lord was not a gang member. The guy that led me to the Lord was a, you know, a guy who talked with a twang in his voice. Hey, David, let me tell you about Jesus. That's exactly how he spoke. That's the man that God used to bring me to Jesus.
Awesome. Awesome. It's been so great to have you guys in studio. Again, the Neighborhood film, that's the film that's going to premiere tonight at Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa. It'll be live streamed. Go to the website. If you can't remember this right now, you're driving around, theneighborhoodfilm.com. We've linked to it on our Facebook page. There's also a great picture of all these guys in studio with Pastor Brian. It's going to be a great night tonight, so we'd invite you to check it out. Thanks, guys, so much for being with us. God bless you.
We pray you've been blessed and that you'll join us again for another edition of Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel and K-Way.